So let's get into it. I've got 15 extensions that I want to show you. And all of them you can get from either within the app of VS Code through the extensions tab, or you can go to the Visual Studio Code marketplace and just have a look really, and kind of have an idea of what's out there, what's good to use. So Synthwave, one of the best VS Code themes. Fight me on the side of the road if you disagree. Now, the first one comes maybe not as a surprise to some of you, but it's Live Server. Now, Live Server basically takes whatever static bit of code you're writing, whether it's HTML, any front end, so it just serves it out onto a local host. So, for example, in the old days, you'd have to get Gulp, or you'd have to get Grunt or something, just a task runner to serve your code, whether it's Docker or whatever it was that you would serve your code with. Live Server does that for you with literally just typing it into the extensions tab, installing it, and then going down here and clicking the go live, and that's it. You literally just serve this up and you can just start looking at your work. Absolutely amazing. Now, these aren't ranked as in like best to worst. These are just in a list. This just happens to be number one, but it is probably also number one. Now, number two is Visual Studio IntelliCode, which is basically AI assisted development features for your Python, your TypeScript, your JavaScript, things like that. It's very clever in figuring out how to help you, how to support you, how to autocomplete, auto-suggest. So, for example, when you're typing things, normally you have that window that pops up. That could be an auto suggestion or an IntelliSuggestion. So it will suggest some code to you, it will suggest how to complete it. So in autocomplete as well. So it can, complete the line of code for you. And this kind of figures out what's best for the language you're using, the app you're using, and based on your file structure. There are some other ones out there that help even further, but this is a great place to get started. And it's something you should always have installed, basically. Number three, Path Autocomplete. Following on from the IntelliCode one I just showed you, this is really good for auto-completing any kind of path to a file, for example, or to a set of types in TypeScript, for example, or anything really that you want to import in via a path. I have noticed that sometimes VS Code out of the box isn't always clever enough to do this. Particularly with SAS files, oddly enough. But this helps with that problem. So, I was having issues with VS Code finding SAS files, and this kind of does the trick. So VS Code is great in certain senses, but there's a lot that you have to add to build it up to, a level that kind of matches the IDEs like WebStorm. So add-ons like this really do help bridge the gap. Number four is material theme icons, just because, I like to have my icons themed. So if we have a look here, we can see that we've got some icons here. So we've got SAS, we've got TypeScript. If we go to public, we've got JS, JSON, HTML, images. So really good one to have. Material icons. Now, GitLens essentially just supercharges your Git flow. Back in the day when there wasn't that many extensions for your Git flow on VS Code, this was one of the first ones, and it just helped with managing your Git flow, looking at your history, being able to commit things with ease. It's almost a really essential add-on, to be honest, for VS Code, especially if you're using Git as your version control. Really, if you're not, what are you doing? But one of my favorite ones, and one of the things that I didn't quite like that VS Code didn't have, is Git Graph. So from someone who's come from WebStorm or PHP Storm or JetBrains IDE or anything that had like a Git Graph built in, that kind of showed the snaky looping Mario pipes type illustration of where your Git branches are going and how they're working together, where certain branches are working off in certain directions, and just understanding whether you're aligned or not. This does that all for you, and to be honest, I think it actually looks better than WebStorm, personally. Kind of reminds me of the Microsoft Pipes screensaver. if we go here and we go to Visual Studio Code and click Git Graph, yeah, you can see that all there. It's a straight line for me. My code is clean AF, but that's how it is. Git History really just is an essential add-on if you want to get blame with real power and real understanding of who really took. No, it's just great to understand the history. It gives you a lot more inline support. And there's not really much more to be said, to be honest, about Git History other than just make sure you have it installed. A lot of these are like core things that you should just have. And Git History is just one of them. Import cost. This one I had in a previous list that I made, and I still swear by it today. Knowing the import cost of something lets you know whether it's working correctly. If we go to a file, let's just go to Hero and here. So we can see here that in this component at the very top, you can see that React is 7.4 kilobytes and that it's 3 kilobytes gzipped. Now what that does is that tells you, okay, it is connected to React. That means it is working. And it gives you an idea if you come up with something that's 200 kilobytes, okay, something's wrong, something's not quite right. It's attached itself to the wrong project, or I've imported the wrong module or package. So what you then do is you can kind of get an understanding of, okay, this package might be too big to include, or this might be too small, so something must be wrong. It's not got everything in. It's just a really good troubleshooting tool, and it's nice to know how big certain npm package sizes are. This one made it into my list last time, and it's auto rename tag. So for some reason VSCode doesn't by default automatically change your beginning and end tag. So for example, if you were to change this originally, it would basically only change the first one and not change the last one. But with that extension, it will also change the end tag as well. So very simple thing, but it's a huge quality of life improvement. I would definitely recommend getting auto rename tag. Highlight matching tag. Now, highlight matching tag is very simple. You simply click the opening end and it highlights the end tag. Very simple, but it lets you know, if something's super nested, if you've got something that's super long that goes all the way down the page and you're not quite sure where it ends or starts because there might be several H1s or several divs or whatever, it kind of lets you know, all right, it's this particular div that it ends in, and it can just save yourself a lot of hassle. And these are little things that help a lot. So you can basically use Slack and Discord in VS Code. Yeah, that's right. Since the last time I made a list, we can now have Slack and Discord in your chat. So if you use Slack at work, you can now have people directly in your chat, and you don't have to leave VS Code and tab away. If someone messages you, you kind of see it there and then. It might be a hindrance, it might not. If you're working on a project or you're working in an isolated mode and you just want to talk to one person and you don't want to talk to a whole bunch of other people on Slack, in other channels and other things, people begging you for PRs or whatever it is, you can stay very focused and just talk to one person and work through a problem together. So yeah, here's hoping that they involve Google Chat and other kind of things into this in the future. But yeah, I think it's a really cool add-on. I think it's really useful, and maybe just try it out and see how it works for you. Partial diff. Now, partial diff is a feature that's in WebStorm that I really liked, and that's essentially being able to compare different bits of text and code together. And you can do this with things from your clipboard, so you can copy something from the web, and then you can essentially check it against some of your code. So for example, if I take this bit of text, and if you go here and you compare it, you can see that it shows you a difference. Now obviously this text is wildly different to the code, but it gives you an example of how you can compare differences very easily. And in WebStorm, it does that in a really cool way, and that's always good for checking differences for Git conflicts and then resolving them. But yeah, you can do this with an extension, which is one of the great things about VS Code. If you don't have it, there's probably an extension for it. Background. So background is quite a cool little add-on and package. Obviously, you don't want an anime child girl on your background, but what it does is it allows for you to choose the background that you want. So whether you want to theme it to be work related, or you want to theme it to be something else cool, if you want to theme it to the project you're working on, whatever you want to do, you can do this with this add-on here. And essentially you can add a picture, a logo, or whatever it is. It's great for demos, I guess, if you're doing online demos a lot off a work laptop and you're sharing the code. So it could be good in that instance. Or if you just want something cool there, you can do that, and it's pretty fun. And last but certainly no means least, the greatest VS Code extension to ever have existed in all time, in all space, in all realities. It is the VS Code power mode. And essentially, you feel every type, you feel every keystroke, and you feel just powerful. You can take on the world, and you can probably even code in Rust by using this. This is the only way you should be coding Rust. Yeah, it's just an extension that basically makes every character explode. That's it. There you go. So if you've learned something, please do like and subscribe. This has been the top VS Code extensions that I would recommend for you to get. Obviously, this should only be used in professional presentations when your job's on the line, this particular extension. But all the other ones you can use casually or professionally. But yeah, I've been Harry, and this has been Curious Byte.